A good Monday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here at 10:30 on 13 WMAZ Plus for a look at your extended forecast. We kind of gave you the gist of it all throughout the morning show and the cut-ins this morning, but here we're going to go into a little more detail about what's happening specifically with the setup and why that's going to pertain to some potential for seeing rain just about each and every day this week. So scattered rain every day, not today. Today is going to be the one dry day that we have on the 7-day without any rain chances. However, Tuesday all the way through Sunday, we are looking at a very summer-like setup with some pop-up showers during the warmest portion of the day. Staying warm all week long, that's going to be one factor that pertains to those scattered showers each and every day. And a very summer-like setup like we were just referring to. We'll break down the details about why that is specifically, because we're already seeing some active weather in other portions of the country. That's going to creep close to us, but not necessarily move all the way through us like the frontal systems that we have seen in recent weeks. So right now, the clouds that we had present this morning, they're still out there, a little bit hazy off in the distance here in Dublin. But it is a forecast now mostly dominated by sunshine all across central Georgia. This is going to continue the warm up as we head closer to the midday hour. Low 70s are the story far and wide. No one looks to be hanging out in the 60s anymore. 70 at our lowest in Monticello and over into Thomaston. 75 at the warmest down in Vidalia, but many areas find themselves around the 72, 73 degree mark here, getting close to 11 a.m. this morning. Across the country, you can kind of get an idea of what's going on, at least where the boundary does lie across the eastern half of the United States. There's cooler air up to the northwest, up into the southern Great Plains, the lower Midwest. And then you're starting to see this mix of greens and yellows over towards the east, along the Appalachian Mountains, down in the southeast, some orange down there just south of Orlando in Florida, which is typically one of our warmest temperatures that we do see. But actually Charleston and Jacksonville matching that 77 degree mark like we do see down in Orlando. New Orleans just 1 degree shy at 76 degrees. A little bit cooler over into Texas. However, they are one time zone behind us, so the sun has kind of just begun to rise over there a little bit later than it did over in the eastern time zone. And then 40s, even around 50 degrees up in Wichita, Kansas City, 61 in Indianapolis, 66 up in Lexington, along with the 66 up in northern Tennessee in Nashville this morning. So where you kind of see this line of yellow and green right here, this is going to indicate a stationary, well, not stationary boundary. It will become stationary pretty soon. This is actually going to be a cold front, not necessarily seeing a ton of colder air behind it, but it is continuing to stretch across much of the United States that you will get a picture of when I show you the surface map. But there is some slightly cooler air behind it and some slightly warmer air ahead of it, along with a more humid atmosphere in areas like Louisiana, Mississippi, getting into the southern tip of Alabama, the Florida Panhandle. Continuing to see that breeze come off the Gulf right there, and that's ushering in some moisture content, some warmer air ahead of that frontal boundary, which is actually going to sprout some severe weather in states over to the west. Hour by hour, we're going to continue to see the temperature climb eventually into the lower 80s by 1 p.m. And then it looks like we're going to remain pretty stagnant there. Going to be very reluctant to see that warming trend into the afternoon. Around 4 or 5 o'clock, typically when our temperatures are the warmest this time of year. Only seeing 83 right here on the Meteogram. Not entirely sure I buy that. I think we're going to go a couple degrees above that 83 degree mark. But the high temperature today is definitely going to be all dependent on how much cloud cover is present. If we have a good sheet of cloud cover as we head into the afternoon, that will keep temperatures a tad bit cooler into the lower 80s like we did see yesterday for your Easter Sunday. But if we don't see any cloud cover, just continued sunshine like the current situation right now, that's going to allow for the warm up into the mid, even upper 80s today across central Georgia. Let's talk about the dew points. We do have a little bit of humidity back in the forecast. I feel like you can definitely feel it a lot more during the morning hours when the temperatures are pretty close to these dew point temperatures, but only dew points maybe in the lower half of the 60s. No dark greens to be seen, which is that really extra muggy weather. And that is not going to be the case throughout the duration of this week. I'll show you that when we go to the future views here in just a second. Winds, we do have a steady breeze in most areas out of the south mainly right now, going to continue to be out of the south, southwest throughout this afternoon, but some gusts up to 16 miles per hour like you see down in Cochran. Plenty of this blue shade across central Georgia, which is a wind steady about 5 to maybe 10 miles per hour, like down in Vidalia currently, or even 13 miles per hour over in Cochrane. You'll have a nice breeze paired up with the sunny skies or the partly cloudy skies this afternoon and the warm temperatures. Here's a live look at your satellite and radar picture. The cloud cover is still present really all around us, even in our southern counties here in central Georgia, but farther up to the northern portion of the state, you're seeing some portions of clearing in that cloud cover. And then here is all the activity ahead of that frontal boundary up into northwest Alabama, northeast Mississippi, stretching up into Tennessee, which is behind the banner up there. And this boundary does in fact stretch a good portion of the country. Now, I did draw these fronts a little bit ago, so they have shifted. This cold front right here is definitely pushing a little bit farther over towards the east across Indiana, where this leading edge of cloud cover and rain is going to be. And it does stretch all the way down into states like Louisiana, over into the Gulf Coast of Texas, and as far northward as up into Ohio and the Great Lakes region of the country. So it's a good continuous line of at least rain right now. Maybe some pockets of heavier rain, some lower end thunderstorms, and many of these thunderstorms are probably going to ramp up in activity as we continue into the warmer portions of today. Right now, activity hasn't really gotten going since temperatures are just now warming up into the 70s across this portion of the country. What's to follow after this boundary? It's not going to really pertain to our forecast, but some drier air, some high pressure over in central Oklahoma and central Texas. Areas that do see the passage of this frontal boundary will see that high pressure filter in, and it will lead to some nice sunny skies after a day of active weather today or tomorrow. However, once we go throughout the next couple of days, that boundary is going to kind of stay put just to the north of us, so we're not going to get any of that high pressure over the course of this week. So let's talk some numbers real quick. 60 degrees was our low yesterday morning. We got down into the upper 50s today, maybe about 58, 59 degrees, but crawled into the lower 80s for your Easter Sunday. 3 degrees above average for this time of year. The morning low was well above average, about 8 degrees above average for this time of year. Thankfully, nowhere near these record numbers. A record high of 92 on April 20th all time back in 1994. And then record low is going to be 31 set back in 1983. We didn't have a chill in the air whatsoever. We got warm yesterday, but still 10 degrees shy of the record. The big story was it was another dry day in central Georgia. Today going to be a dry day, and most of the next week is still going to continue to be dry. This year departure of rain continues to go down in the negative direction. Now about 1.4 inches below average in terms of rainfall for where we should be at this time of year. If we don't get any rainfall over the course of the next couple of days, that number just continues its decline. But the rain chances we have in the forecast, they're not looking really widespread or like they're going to dump a lot of rain on us. So I do believe that this number will probably get closer and closer to about 2 inches below average as we head into the end of the week. Now, I was talking about it last week, and we did see this come to fruition. Sunrise yesterday at 6:59, the first pre-7 a.m. sunrise that we've had so far this year. That happened on Saturday, and once again, we saw the sunrise at 6:59 again on Sunday morning for your Easter sunrise. And then sunset yesterday, 8 minutes past 8 at 8 p.m. already at night. That sunrise will continue, or sunset, excuse me, will continue to get closer and closer to 9 p.m. as we head into the summertime months. So today's almanac, still the same average high, still the same average low. We will continue to see those numbers tick up and up as we get into warmer portions of the year. 92 is once again the record for today. I'm not going to get close to that, I don't believe. We definitely didn't get close to 34 during the morning hours, which is a very good thing. And a little bit of a change in the sunrise and sunset. That sunrise was 1 minute earlier at 6:58 this morning, and the sunset will be 1 minute later at 8:09 later on this evening. So your forecast for today, staying warm and staying dry, still continuing with that weather that we had for your Easter weekend. A breeze out of the southwest, some occasional gusts up to 15 to 20 miles per hour possible, and partly cloudy skies for your Monday afternoon. I believe that we will crawl into a high temperature in the upper 80s, around 87 degrees. Now, if we do see a little bit of an increase in cloud cover and it does hang around the downtown Macon and the South Bibb area, that's going to allow that number to not necessarily get that high. But the warming trend is already underway. The high temperature today is really going to be dependent on the cloud cover. And if we hit 87, that would be about 8 degrees above average for this time of year. If we hit the lower 80s and we didn't quite crawl that far up on the temperature scale, don't think there'd be any complaints whatsoever. A little bit of relief because we have plenty of temperatures that are forecasted to kind of flirt with 90 degrees towards the end of the work week. So let's go through future view. This is obviously a bigger scale view than you normally see. I wanted to kind of draw this across the southeastern portion of the United States to give you an idea of what we're going to see in terms of this frontal boundary and what it's going to do as it gets closer to us in the state of Georgia. So all the rain is going to be just ahead of this cold front, and this is a rough drawing, forgive me, the models change very drastically, so sometimes I'm not necessarily behind all of where the rain showers are. It does continue to push into the southeast portion of the United States. However, this left edge of it kind of stays stalled already, while we do see the right edge, kind of the upper edge of this boundary, continue to try to push, and that's going to kind of shift the tilt of it. So we're going to see the axis of precipitation, or where that rainfall is ahead of the boundary, kind of change shape from its typical northwest to southeast motion. It's going to have more of a west to east kind of direction as we go throughout the next couple of days. And that's what we see come to fruition all the way through your Tuesday evening. Then this boundary begins to kind of fall apart and it becomes stationary. So once it becomes stationary, we're just going to see scattered cloud cover and some showers and storms to the southern end of this where the warmer air is still going to be present. And that's typically what we see along these stationary boundaries or just to the south of it. That's where your typically more active weather is, especially heading into the warmer seasons of the year. And this boundary does once again extend from far southeastern Texas over around the Houston area all the way through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, into South Carolina, North Carolina, and eventually up in the Chesapeake Bay area of Virginia and Maryland. So this boundary is going to kind of stay put and fluctuate just a little bit over the course of Tuesday night into Wednesday. And then after that, it really just falls apart and you're not seeing any organization amongst these rain showers as we go into your Wednesday evening. And it does look like central Georgia still finds itself kind of in a lull of activity, a little bit of the no fun zone is what we like to call it. And then we see some scattered showers up in all these areas to the north, to the west, to the east. No real rhyme or reason for it. It's just going to be areas that have a little bit of more humidity, some warmer temperatures, a very summer-like pattern with the heat of the day and moisture. You start to sprout some scattered showers and even some thunderstorms, and they start to fizzle out as you go into a cooler period of the day overnight into the early morning hours. So now let's zoom future view in and let's take it from our neck of the woods, our point of view. So this is going throughout the rest of this afternoon. Monday going to be a dry day, partly cloudy skies. If we see decent amount of cloud cover, our temperatures won't get as high as the upper 80s. They'll only get as high as somewhere in the lower 80s, maybe even flirt with the mid 80s. Then we go all the way into tomorrow afternoon. That boundary creeps closer and closer to us, but really just stalls out and doesn't have much motion to it to the north of us. And it doesn't really look like we have a very good chance of seeing precipitation besides some scattered green dots that try to pop up. However, not really seeing it come to fruition here in central Georgia. We still can see these models fluctuate pretty drastically given the nature of what these showers are doing. These heat of the day, summer-like showers that pop up, that typically is very hard to resolve amongst the models. We're going to see a different resolution each and every time that we are doing this forecast. So that's why I still maintain the belief that about a 20% chance of seeing a scattered shower for tomorrow, because I think we'll see a little bit better coverage than this. However, most areas still will remain dry each and every day. So that's going through your Tuesday afternoon. Now we pick it up on Wednesday afternoon. Once again, not much activity during the overnight and early morning hours, but when you head into the late morning and early afternoon hours, you see activity popping up. It just doesn't really look like we have sufficient ingredients in central Georgia, according to these latest couple model runs, to sprout widespread rain, maybe not getting the coverage that areas all around us are getting of this rainfall, and then continuing to see that lull in activity as we head into your Wednesday night and early morning on Thursday. So let's pick it up on the long-range models. What is in store for the rest of the week? It is the same song and dance as we close out the work week. Thursday, maybe seeing some scattered showers around us or even here in central Georgia that the European model in blue seems to think that we might have. This would actually be the only solution that I've seen with a good coverage, at least some clusters of showers, maybe even some lower end thunderstorms over the next couple of days, really. Then we start to see another system take shape up to the north and northwest of us as we go into your Friday afternoon. Looks like central Georgia will once again be left out of the fun in terms of getting any rainfall. Now we go into Saturday afternoon, rain chances still not looking that impressive, just due to the shape of these boundaries that are kind of moving through, not really moving through, I guess, moving around us. You can see that this boundary going to have a very west to east direction, and the axis of all that precipitation just up to the north of us along the leading edge of that boundary. So other states just to the north and northeast of us are probably going to get that precipitation, but we may be a little bit far away from that. Not enough moisture content. Temperatures aren't quite warmer. Actually, temperatures will be pretty warm, so probably just not enough moisture content to sprout some scattered rain showers. And then going through Sunday afternoon, still looking mostly dry. Some light green dots and light blue dots here and there. That takes us into the beginning of the work week next week, kind of transitioning April into May. And yeah, still not seeing much activity whatsoever. I still think we can see fluctuation with about which areas are going to see rain, which areas might not. And just because you see a shower over your area at a certain time when we do show these future view models, take it with a grain of salt, because that can change in the blink of an eye with the latest model run that we do continue to get. That's just kind of the nature of these heat of the day showers and potential low end thunderstorms if we see any of those whatsoever. Very hard for the models to resolve, and you'll see that a lot more frequently, and we'll continue to say that phrase, take it with a grain of salt, once we get into the summertime months where it's very hot, where it's very humid, and we have that chance virtually each and every day. So how about the wind gusts? I did mention a steady breeze throughout today, maybe 15 to 20 miles per hour at most. Nothing too gusty, just a nice breeze to pair up with some warm temperatures this afternoon. Going into Tuesday, about the same story, maybe 10 to 15 miles per hour, a little bit of a downtick. And then we go on into Wednesday, not as much of a breeze whatsoever. The gustier winds are going to be over here, just southeast of Columbia is where it looks like, where there probably is going to be some thunderstorm activity because these red colors are very localized, indicating that they're probably going to be within some of your more intense rainfall, some of your stronger weather, but still nothing here in central Georgia, and maybe a slight breeze passing through during the overnight hours into your Thursday morning. But that's as far as that map does go. The humidity is going to be a big reason for maybe seeing that lull in activity in terms of rainfall. You see dew points, we have plenty of that light green shade. Once you get into the upper 60s, flirting with 70-degree dew point temperatures, that's where you'll start to see these shades like over here in Mississippi, these dark green shades, and that's going to be a perfectly suitable environment for sprouting heat of the day showers and maybe even thunderstorms. So we go through today, dew points still looking present somewhere in the 50s, maybe getting to 60 degrees at most. That's about all we see over the course of the next 3 days. So we have our patches of dry air enveloped within all of this moisture around us. That's probably a good reason for seeing less activity in the form of rainfall per se over the next couple of days. The actually highest the dew points do get somewhere overnight Wednesday into Thursday, maybe up into the mid 60s, but it's still not that really muggy air in the dark green that is going to be more suitable for some rain. So going over the afternoon high temperatures, this system is going to come just to the north of us and stall. So we're not looking at that swift motion of the front through. We're not going to see some slightly cooler air ushered into central Georgia. The only influence on these temperatures will be a little bit cloud cover, but cloud cover is only going to keep these temperatures down a couple degrees, maybe 3 or 4 degrees, as opposed to what I have forecasted, and some rain. If you do luck out and catch any of these scattered rain showers, then that will knock the temperatures down just a little bit, probably into the 70s for some afternoon highs. But 87 is what I have for today, mid 80s throughout the midweek, and then rising back into the upper 80s as we go into the end of the work week on Friday. How about the morning lows? Do we have any more of those chilly mornings that we had a couple days last week to kick us off? Nope, it is looking like we are going to be above average for each and every day this week. Upper 50s, around 60 degrees, still virtually going to feel the same whether that number has a 5 in front of it or if it has a 6 in front of it. That average low this time of year, 52 degrees, and we are still falling at least about 5 or 6 degrees at the minimum above that temperature. So it will be a very pleasant start to each and every day. So a constant reminder, with mid 80s, upper 80s in the forecast, concrete and asphalt temperatures are going to be a lot hotter, be sure that you're getting some kind of shoes for your pets if you're taking them on an afternoon stroll, or you are just keeping them in the grass where it's a little bit cooler than those hard surface temperatures like concrete and asphalt. As we get into the summer months, we'll be talking about temperatures in the 90s, the mid 90s. The concrete and asphalt temperatures just continue to go up, even when it's 95 degrees outside, feeling about 45 degrees warmer on the concrete. The asphalt is going to get even hotter, so it can be feeling somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 degrees warmer than that actual temperature during a very hot summer day. Thankfully, we're not talking that just yet, but these are still really hot temperatures on the surface at just 85 degrees. So be cognizant of your pets. If it's a little bit too warm, you see these temperatures and you say, hey, I don't want to be walking on surface temperatures that warm. Your pets most certainly do not want to be doing that as well. How about your grill cast for tonight? It's going to be the one day without rain chances this week for your Monday evening. I would definitely suggest firing up the grill tonight as opposed to any other day throughout the rest of the week. But even then, I'm probably just going to throw yellow spatulas on your 6 to 7 to 8 o'clock window each and every night. More likely that you aren't going to see rain as opposed to seeing some rain, but if you do run into one of those showers, obviously not something that you want to fight off as you are going to grill out. And the good news is any showers that we do see look to be fairly short-lived in nature, and right now they're looking fairly light. We're not looking at maybe some heavier rainfall with some of the lower end thunderstorms that I was talking about. Nothing in the way of severe weather is forecasted, so it's still something that you could brave out if you are wanting to grill out. Allergy monitor, not this weekend. Don't pay attention to that tab right there behind my head. But tree pollen continues to be at moderate levels. I was actually looking at the forecast. Tree pollen going to go down to low levels as we go into your Wednesday. That will be a sign of relief. Anytime we can see a downtick in some of these pollen categories, it is always going to be a win. Grass pollen will still remain very high. Ragweed and mold levels still don't really pertain to anything. They haven't been very high throughout the duration of me showing these allergy monitors, and not seeing any sign of them increasing over the near future. So let's break down your 7-day forecast. Like I said, very, very summer-like, throwing a rain chance on each and every day. And obviously this probably doesn't accurately represent the coverage of rain that you saw in that future view model run. Again, those models are going to fluctuate as we go throughout the next couple of days. But I would say the likelihood of you receiving rain and not receiving rain, the likelihood of you not receiving rain is going to be a lot higher. These 20% chances, remember, that's still an 80% chance that you don't see any rain or any low-end thunderstorms whatsoever. But there is a 20% chance that you do. Want to make sure that you have the umbrella on standby, because if you tell yourself it's not going to rain, then Mother Nature has a funny way of hearing you and says, hold on, I can change that real quick for you. So mid to upper 80s all week long temperature-wise, maybe into the mid 80s for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the midweek, back into the upper 80s as we head into the weekend. And then Sunday going to be the cooler of the bunch as it stands right now. This is still 6 days out, so this temperature is very bound to fluctuate, but this would be very, very close to what we did as of last weekend for your Easter holiday, just introducing those 20% chances of showers, maybe even a low-end thunderstorm, but not really confident in that whatsoever. After looking at the long-range models a little more in depth, maybe for your Friday and your Saturday, we might start to slim those rain chances down, maybe do a 10%, maybe even take the rain chances off entirely because it looked like most of the rain was well north of us or well out of our area. I would say Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the midweek, that's going to be your better chance at seeing a scattered shower in nature, maybe more so a scattered sprinkle. But today does remain the only day without any rain chances on it. And it's once again going to be in the afternoon into the evening hours if you see any of that rain. That's when temperatures are starting to get at their warmest. You have that surface heat. You have a little bit of moisture in the forecast. Those are two prime ingredients to continue to sprout some scattered rain showers, very isolated in nature as well. So maybe west end of Bibb County, Lizella, Lake Wildwood, Lake Toposofkee, they're receiving a rain shower, maybe even hearing a couple rumbles of thunder. Us here in downtown Macon, we very well might not see that rain whatsoever. So giving you an idea of kind of the summertime, the isolated and scattered pattern that this rain is going to take over the next couple of days. As we go into the weekend, still not seeing any indications of a major weather system moving through continuously. So it does remain another week that we are going to be very thankful that it's a relatively quiet period of weather as opposed to what we are used to during the spring severe weather season, with system after system coming every couple of days, sprouting thunderstorms, severe thunderstorms, even tornado warnings that we have seen in recent weeks. So we're not dealing with any of that, just hopefully going to keep your fingers crossed for a brief shower at least to allow for one day off of watering the garden, watering the lawn. But I do believe that most areas could very well go throughout this entire stretch without seeing any rain whatsoever. Not the best news, but at least we will continue with the warm weather, the partly cloudy skies if you don't see any of the rain. And then we continue into the weekend, which looks to be another great one for outdoor activities. Last weekend of April, which is very hard to believe. Turning the calendar to May next week, and there is a lot that goes on with May, mainly graduation season, starting to wrap up the school year. So be sure to get one fun of maybe an early summer preview weather for your Friday, Saturday, even into your Sunday afternoons before you get into that hectic season at the end of the school year, especially with folks having kids graduate as we head into May. So that will do it for this extended forecast. Hopefully it was pretty informative, and I know it was a lot of information, but as it does stand, just a chance of a scattered shower each and every day this week after today, Tuesday all the way through Sunday. More likely than not to receive any rain. However, keep that umbrella on standby in case you do interact with one of those, more so on your evening commute home from work or maybe any plans that you have heading out to dinner or running errands after work this week. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys again tomorrow at 10:30 sharp for another extended forecast.